I love this vibe you have now. I love this like hat, sunglass. I love that you're already like partying. I know. I'm so excited about this episode. What are you drinking? Tell me. Tell us.
Sparkling water, sparkling water.
Oh, same, by
This
the
is
way.
how I get the vibes going. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't drink a lot anymore. Not really.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get to that in a second because I know you have a new line as well. But I'll just tell me time. So you guys, part of my me time is learning about new things. And while I do know some things about wine, we're gonna kind of start at the beginning a little bit, and then we'll kind of talk about what Matthew knows and a little of what I know and all those good things. But Matthew is somebody I have known since Covell opened in 2011. I mean, we're still 21, so I don't even know how, but right? Didn't it open in 2011?
2010.
2010. Okay. I remembered I moved to the East Side and Melanie Linsky, who you know as well, Matthew is like a dear friend of mine, and we had like this standing Monday night date. And we loved this place called Lou Wine that was on Vine and Melrose for a while, and it closed. We're like, where are we gonna go? And another friend of mine who was in Los Feliz was like Jen Finnegan, who is also wonderful, but she was like, you got to try this new place, Covell. And so, well, first off, I'm going to give a little background. I want you to promote anything you want to promote as well, Matthew, because you are now, I believe, the wine uh journalist for Men's Journal.
Yeah, apparently that happened. That's
I'm
real.
like, wait, Matthew, are you just like flying around the world and like trying wine bars?
I mean, I already
Basically,
did that. I used
you
to do
already did
that.
it.
I've been doing that, and I think that's why I was in a unique position to get this opportunity. So yeah, yes, and yes.
Okay, so Men's Journal, please read. I've been reading the articles you've been posting. It's I know it's Men's Journal, but it's for everybody. And Matthew is so brilliant about wine, but he's also disarming about wine. Like if you are just learning about wine, I was in my early days of learning about wine when I first met you. And follow him on Instagram, and you'll have tons of fun, and you'll learn a lot and hear about all the great stuff he's doing. So back to our like sort of origin story. Matthew and I met when I went to Covell, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I walked in, and it was already hopping. This place like it made a splash early on. You
Mhm.
created such a special low key atmosphere, but like it was such a vibe because also the wine was so unique and very select. Like you curated very special wines, and then everyone working there, you could literally ask anyone working there any question about wine, and you could taste wines. It was just this open, easy place. And I knew I loved wine, but I didn't know that much about it. And I remember when I sat down, and I think you said like, what are you in the mood for? And I don't know what I said, probably something like, "I want something fruity." And and I remember you made me get specific, and I got really intimidated, and I was like, "Oh, I don't actually know that much about wine, but I," and you, like, walked me through, like, you got me to wherever I needed to, like, get to describe what I wanted. You explained wine to me, and honestly, you're one of the reasons that I grew to love wine and learned about it along the way up until just a few years ago when I was going to Greece. I like went to Covell one night just to see you to be like, "Yo, what am I drinking in Greece?" And you were like, "A Certico." And it's Ginomavra, is that right? Am I saying
Shinamabra.
that right?
Yeah.
Giomavra, yeah. Anyway, so Matthew has also, I'm just gonna give this shout out to you as well for the pandemic. Covell, obviously we all wanted to support our local places, and Covell was just a home to me for, I mean, life events happened there for me. I learned all about wine there. Like you have the most beautiful people working there. Sean is one of my best friends now. Like, and during the pandemic, they were so brave and offered, to I could literally just text you and be like, "Hey, I would just want to get a few bottles. I'm scared to go anywhere."
Yeah.
You were like, "We all have masks on. We're gonna open the trunk. We'll put a couple things in there." I was like, "Nobody's working." So you were like, it was affordable wines. It was just great. Anyway, I it will always have Covell will always be a little home to me, but also that's the place you created, so you'll always have a place in my heart, and I just adore you. So,
Means a
that's it.
lot. Thank
That was
you.
a lot. That
Thank
was a
you.
lot. It was a
No,
big
I know it means a lot. It's so sweet of you to say. I mean, we me and Dustin Lancaster, who's still an owner there, and he's
yeah.
the my co-founder, and he designed it. It was his idea. He came to me and wanted to open a wine bar, was sick of making money for other people. And I said,
Mm.
let's go. You tell me when and where. And that became Covell, which is so crazy, to open a wine bar with no wine list, but 150 wines by the glass. We literally got people to
Yes.
learn the vernacular of wine.
It is where I learned about wine. I mean, I can't stress this enough because and granted, I haven't strayed very far from Covell, so I can't say that I know a ton of other wine bars, but I just it was such an easy way to get to know. I mean, my God, we could sit down and just be like, "Oh, I'm kind of in the mood for a light red." And boom, there'd be like 3 bottles in front of you. You could taste, you could learn about it. The bartenders would kind of walk you through the process of, the correct way to like etiquette even. It was so much more than just a wine
Yeah.
bar where you go and pick a wine and have like you learned about wine. Anyway, it's where I fell in love with wine. So I'm hoping all the listeners they'll that's why it's like today I want to talk to you about where I am now, but I also, as you can see by a lot of the questions that came in, like we kind of have to we'll go back to the beginning a little bit. First off,
Yeah, we'll zoom out. We'll zoom out. It's
we'll
okay.
zoom
We're
out.
allowed to do that. And one of the things that I've had to remind myself in my career is this little kind of like club of people who know a lot about wine. It's a small club. And when you're introverted like that, insulated, able to talk about wine in a certain, like, have that language, have that common language, but then you're tasked with bringing in other people who have not gotten that far in their journey yet, or are very passionate and excited but don't have the same experiences you have. It's really easy to turn people off, to not be
Mm,
respectful, to not be inclusive. And one of the things I made a really early part of my career, very important moment, and I can throw this back to working at Silver Lake Wine when I worked there
mm,
first as holiday help and then became the manager of the store. The whole thing was everyone's equal, everyone is part of the conversation, make everyone feel like you're giving them their attention they deserve. And you never talk over anyone. You never make them
mm.
feel like they don't know the answer to a question. If they ask a question and they had the balls to ask that question, give them an answer. Don't make them feel like you're too good
Yes,
to answer the question. It's
right,
not fair.
right. And that I think is wine is intimidating.
It can be. Yeah. It doesn't
If
have to
you're
be, but it can be.
no. And also I think that you're right. A lot of times yeah, it can be if whoever you're asking, whoever you're with, whoever you're dining with, makes you feel that way. But wine is like beautiful. I see it. It's like such an art. Have you seen Drops of God?
I almost started it last night.
Okay.
I almost did. I've been hearing about it. I saw the previews when before it came out.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, I'm either going to love it or hate it, and I don't know which one. And
I can see
I,
that. Mhm.
I'm sure, I'm sure that there are things about it I'm going to love. And last night, instead of starting it, I went to bed early. So maybe tonight will be the night, which
Okay.
for those watching or listening at home, that will be whenever you are watching or listening at home. That's when I started
Exactly. Tonight.
it.
It's tonight.
Yeah, the
Whatever
day that
night
ends
that
in Y.
is.
Yeah, tonight.
Okay. Wait, so I wanna, we have Matthew, so many questions, and I even have questions, but
Yeah.
before we get to all of them, because this will just be such a fun, like, Q&A thing, when and how did you what was it that was like, I'm into wine. I wanna learn about wine for you?
There are some really important line in the sand moments for me. The first one, stealing a glass of champagne at a wedding at 7 years old,
Hmm?
crushing the whole glass,
Oh,
and
shit.
then I had to be taken home because I was throwing up everywhere. That was like I something changed then. I know that. Like my DNA changed, my brain waves, whatever. And then to go further along, I grew up in Santa Barbara, quite lucky to be from such a beautiful place, but also a wine producing place.
Yeah.
And I knew what was going on in a way. When you're young and you live in a place like that, like you kind of have an idea of why people are making the movements they are, why certain tourism is happening. But like, unless you're in a wine family or you're old enough to go check out the wineries themselves, it's kind of hard to really understand it. So I stayed in Santa Barbara for college. I went to UCSB before I quit. Yeah, I'm one of those people that quit college, whatever. And
Same.
wine for me, yes, I love it. It's like a badge of honor, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we made it. We're still here. We can still
We're here,
talk.
we're here, we're here, we can still talk and
Like,
enjoy
yeah,
wine. Yeah,
somehow it's
yeah.
all okay. Um, yeah, I had a friend, a close friend. He was a roommate and a close friend whose father was a big time wine collector. And for some reason, he saw something in me. He invited me to family dinners with his son and with like his, my friend's mom, and other dinners like with very famous people in his sphere in the wine world or just in the LA world. I was just as a young kid, basically like
Mhm.
20, 21 years old, brought into this whole kind of insanity that I still can't afford. I'm trying to, but
Mm.
that was really where I saw it was super different than like, oh, when you cook dinner for a girl, like you're supposed to open a bottle of wine. Because
Mhm.
that's what I thought it was. That's what
Mhm.
I didn't know any better
Mhm.
until I was really shepherded by Ron Green, who opened, I'm talking like wines from the 18 and 1900s.
Oh,
Um, like, yeah, he was opening like Madeira from the 1800s and Armagnac from the early 1900s. And we were drinking grower champagnes from the 70s and Premier and Grand Cru Burgundies from the 50s, 60s,
oh,
70s,
come
like
on.
old German Rieslings from the 30s and 50s, like just insanity, right?
Oh.
Um, I saw a different side of it. I was too young to really get it, but what it
Mhm.
did was it made me realize there was a lot of questions that I needed to ask, and I needed to be willing to take the time to get the answers. And so that started my journey. I got my first wine job at 22. Is that
Wow.
right? 2005? Yeah, I'm 40 now, so 2000, it's 18 years ago, just over 18 years ago. And I got a job at the Wine Cask Wine Store in Santa Barbara. Imagine me with curly hair. I wore a lot of hats like I still do. I used to get stoned out of my mind every morning and walk into work and sell the most incredible bottles of wine to all these cool people. It was a real life-changing thing because before that I was trying so hard to be a musician, whatever that means, and I
Right.
was working at a barbecue restaurant that a good friend of mine growing up's father owned. The Dean family, still close with them and love them dearly. um it was such a new thing for me because trying to do music, you learn quickly, like, it depends on, like, how cool your guitar is, how good looking are you? No one gives a
Mhm.
shit how good you are sometimes, you
Mhm.
know? It's like,
Yeah.
how full is the room? How many people paid to get in?
Right.
Not, do I like the song? Is the song inspiring me to, like, wanna go buy a record? And with wine, super different experience. It was all about, we have this, like, it's a piece of art. It's a liquid piece of art that someone
Mhm.
can experience and talk about and have perspective on, and then you can
Mhm.
tell the story of the people who grew it and the story of the people who put the vineyard in and why historically there's all these amazing movements that happen because of wine. And I was just scratching the surface back then, and that's become my, really, I call myself a modern day wine raconteur because I tell the fucking stories. It's what I do.
I love the stories. That's really that's amazing. So that is like it's funny because that's like one of the things I do talk about on Me Time with people is like these moments of impact, these things that happen that kind of change their lives forever, like these things that
Mhm.
just kind of happen out of nowhere.
Of
Maybe it's a
course, yeah.
miracle, maybe it's a devastating thing, like whatever it is, from that point forward you are different. You are changed, you are moved. And it sounds like for you in a lot of ways it was sort of pivoting into wine after music and seeing the world and the community that's there. I credit you for a lot of this. I see wine. I know so little, obviously comparing to what you have learned. But God, also see it as art. I also like feel the history when I drink it. I feel like the earth when I mean, there's just it's a whole thing. I mean, it's different for everybody. But I hear you. I love it. That's very like poetic almost. But that it is that in a lot of ways. And also
At
what a
bar
community. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say I borrowed something, a very important moment. A good friend of mine who makes wine in Arizona, the northeast of Arizona. The
Whoa,
vineyards, wineries are called Caduceus and
okay.
Merkin Vineyards and Arizona Stronghold. There's all this other stuff they have going on, but he's also a massive rock star. He's in the band Tool. He's in a Perfect
Oh,
Circle.
cool. Uh-huh.
His name's James. Everyone knows him as Maynard, but Maynard James Keenan is his name. And there was a film that was made about when he made the first wine that was made in Arizona but grown from his own vineyards. And they actually filmed part of it at Silver Lake Wine. So there's this cool moment where we're all kind of in the film. And in that moment where he finally opens the first bottle that was grown in Arizona and made in Arizona, and it's magical and moment impactful because prior to that he would ship grapes over from Napa, Paso, Santa Barbara, whatever, make the wine there, but it wasn't grown in Arizona. So
Okay.
this moment happens. He finally gets the bottle open. And, for those who don't know this, when grapes are grown, that happens one time a year. You then make wine. The first wine you're going to have from that last year, usually white wines and rosés, you have them the next calendar year. You don't drink them like 8 hours later. You have to be
That's
patient.
that's a good
Some red
question. Yeah,
wines take 2 or 3
answer.
years to go through their process and be ready for you to drink. So he made this sacrifice of time and land and money, grew the grapes, made the wine, and had to wait for this moment, this capturable moment. And on the film, it literally says a liquid love letter, which has carried with me for forever because that's what wine is. It's a liquid love letter, literally. I actually called my band that. I asked him if I could, and he allowed me to. But
Oh,
it's a
Matthew,
it's this
I love this.
poetic thing, right?
Yeah.
It's such an incredible, like, all-encompassing way of describing the emotion behind it, the poetry behind it, and I think something really worth talking about. Every time you open a bottle of wine or you don't open a bottle of wine, think of the decisions that go into that. Like, for instance, if you have an opportunity to drink a 50-year-old wine,
Mhm.
and you were probably not the original owner of that bottle, think of all the times someone decided not to drink it for you to get to that moment, right?
Oh, I have
The
chills.
passage of time, the
Yeah.
emotion behind that, the fact that someone's got inventory held up with they paid money to own it. Like, this is the kind of stuff I start thinking about so I can communicate wine differently. So
Yeah.
people stop thinking about it tastes like raspberries. It tastes like, gooseberry.
Yeah.
Like, cool, I get that, but like the emotion's what matters. If you can't emotionally connect, what are we doing?
I that's so well said, and also, like, I'm glad that people I'm it's just nice to hear this because I feel like this is what made me fall in love with it as well, was having the experience of everything you're talking about, like, and when you take that moment to process it, which I don't do all the time, but, like, as you just said, and like, people listening now, like, you're reaching all of these people now. I mean, you always have, but just on this podcast, like, the people listening to this podcast who've never had this view or this take or whatever is like they're inspired. It's an inspiring thing, and if you enjoy wine, like, it's kind of interesting to think about all the factors you're talking about, the art of making, and just go back as far as artists, written word, all of that, like that. It's also, there's such a history. I mean, I was with Melanie recently, and I met Turley, the Turley wine. Do you know Turley
Christina?
wine? Yeah,
Or the
Christina.
the here in
I
LA?
met
Yeah, yeah.
Christina, literally met
Yeah.
Christina,
Yeah, she's
and she
awesome.
was just oh my god, it was so lovely. And do you know Terrence at Horses?
I've
The
never been to
song
horses. I don't think I know anyone there.
yeah, and that's a whole
I've
other
heard
thing,
about them,
but, like, yeah,
but yeah.
but Terrence, and he was like, both of them, they were talking about the soil. Like, when you even just that, like, if you're a history person, if you're an art person, if you're like, what are the earth people? A
Geologists.
geological or
Yeah.
botanist or whatever, like,
Yeah,
you
that'd be plant
are.
study, yeah.
Yes, so you're
Yeah.
there's so many layers to it, and she was talking about, like, the different eras of time that, like, this soil, they were picking up this soil, like, I was like, this is what we're talking about. So anyway, this conversation, Matthew, I could talk to you for days about this part of it because I think that is, to me too, even if I'm not totally conscious of it every single time I'm taking a sip, there's something in it that I feel when I drink wine, and it's all of that you're talking about, even if I'm not processing every single thought or every single thing. And I love you as a wine person being open to, like, talking about that part of it as well, because I think that a lot of people, it is just kind of an intimidating world. It's like, I'm going to stick to the thing I know, which was one of the questions I was going to ask you, is like, I know for me when I first got in, like, back in my 20s when I first started having wine, and somebody might say like, "Oh, if you wanna taste like a quintessential Chardonnay, have like a Rombauer or have something like that." Like that, so I was like having these like very, and then I'd go to Costco wine tastings because they
Yeah.
were awesome, and that
Yeah.
but I didn't know the words. I'd be like, "I know I like a Pinot Noir," but I couldn't name like the notes in the Pinot Noir. So if somebody else said like, if I didn't wanna get a Pinot Noir, I wanted to get something else, I would know what to say if a bartender like you said to me, "What do you like?" And I could say this, this, and this, but I don't want a Pinot Noir, I wanna try something new. So,
Yeah.
but I like something like that, and that's where you came in with, like, all of this, and these are the questions, of course, I wanna ask you, but we need, like, a week, Matthew. We
Right?
need, like, all this time, yeah, because I
I'll
it
make time for you. I got
but
you.
but you were that for me, that's what I'm saying. So, anyway, I just wanted to say, and Sean as well, who,
Yeah,
is
of course.
actually doing, the pod next week too. He's like,
Ooh, nice.
yeah, well, we're doing like a pop at night, like me, Sean, and Melanie are doing a little hangout, but wine will be served.
That's gonna be
Um,
good.
yeah, it'll be good. So, I mean, again, I could talk to you all day, but I love getting this sort of like about this art and this part of it. But I want to get into some of these questions because there are so many of them. Like they're still coming in. I've look,
Wow.
I haven't had this kind of a response. Like I'm so excited you're here, and also like I am so excited to have wait, hold on here. Let me find all my questions. There are some that are a little overlappy. The first one, my favorite one was, "Are you Maggie Lawson?" So Matthew, 1 second. Are you Maggie Lawson?
It turns out I'm not Maggie Lawson,
Okay,
no.
cool. Are you ready, Matthew? Are you ready? I'm also gonna play a fun game with you.
Ready. I
Are
like
you up
games
for
and I'm ready.
games? Okay,
Yeah.
because we're gonna play Fuck, Marry, Kill. So we're gonna do like a sip, savor, skip version
Yep.
of like I'm
Yep.
gonna give you like 5, but we're gonna make everyone wait for that.
Okay.
One question I got when I asked people to weigh in, it was like a lot of people had a similar version of this question, which was, "What is the best wine that is readily available under $20?"
You know, that's a question that is a hard one to answer only because everyone's looking for something different and best is subjective. And
So
I want to be
yeah,
respectful to the question, but I also want to make sure that people asking it are realizing like so it could be the best wine or $20 for a certain context and I could say this
all
this
right, I'm
this.
gonna give you some context. Ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to my boss's house for a dinner party. I've only got 25 bucks. I
Yep.
wanna bring something impressive,
Yep.
but I don't really know that much about wine, and
Yep.
I'm gonna, like, n I would go grab a Trader Joe's thing. What would be, let's do a red and a white. What would be an impressive red and what would be an impressive white?
Sparkling wine is always impressive no matter what. Always. Just
I'm
everyone
so
listening at home,
yeah.
remember this for the rest of your lives. Sparkling wine is impressive. So, there are a couple places you can get really great value sparkling wine. You will not break the bank. Alsace, Cremant d'Alsace. Cremant is the word for a sparkling wine in French when it's
Mhm.
from anywhere other than Champagne. Champagne is a
Yes,
place on a
yes.
map. You can go to Champagne. You could stand in Champagne and be there and look at your iPhone and see on Google Maps that you were standing in Champagne. They also make sparkling wine there called Champagne. It's a protected thing from the French government.
Yep.
Cremant is the word in French for sparkling wines from outside of there. So Cremant d'Alsace from Alsace,
Mhm.
Cremant de Loire, and Cremant de Lemieux. Lemieux is where sparkling wine originates. Those
Really?
three
I didn't know that.
sparkling wines.
And
Yes.
I had a Cremant de Girard the other day that I
Also
love.
incredible, but tend to be
Okay,
higher priced.
they are. It was like this one was like 35, I wanna say. So I'm happy. I'm happy to know
Well, I didn't
myself
recommend it,
even.
but
Great.
in this context, that's why I didn't say it.
I okay. So sparkling wine, you heard it here first, everybody. Sparkling wine, always impressive. I'm on such a sparkling wine kick right now that I'm actually, this is helpful for me, and a champagne kick. Right now,
Yes,
I'm also like, have you discovered some like Whiston? Have you discovered some of these sparkling wines from like the
that sounds
UK?
English. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's cool about and I don't like framing it this way, but it is part of the global warming conversation.
Of
What is
course.
cool about global warming, other than all the bullshit that fucks our planet up, is
Right.
that places that 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, people poo-pooed as, "Oh, the weather's not good enough. We can't ripen grapes. Why would you invest there?" Places that used to be looked at as negative and low quality are now becoming world class, of which the south of UK is one of them. And
Right.
Sparkling wine from the UK, though it's not at all in this price point. I mean, UK sparkling wines are like 50 to $200. They're expensive.
Okay.
But the quality is incredible, and why it matters, why, like, contextually, well, let's go to soil for a second. That part of Southern England has this very specific style of limestone called Commergian limestone that's from the same era. I think it's like 500 to 750 million years ago.
Whoa.
So like when, I'm pretty sure there were, what do you call them, dinosaurs roaming the earth then.
Yeah.
That era of limestone also exists in Chablis,
Yeah.
in parts of Champagne, and in Sancerre specifically.
Love
So
some.
that's why the
Yes.
south of England has this ability to make such high quality sparkling wine.
Wow. I didn't even know all of that. It's so funny because Christina was telling me about that soil, like the soil, what I was just saying, we were talking about. She was like, it was
Yeah,
like dinosaurs were roaming the earth and like that's the soil. These roots are still reaching. Isn't that
Tyrannosaurus
crazy?
rexes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, yes, I want the dinosaur wine. This was that's huge, by the way, the sparkling wine for sure. Okay, so I'm just going down questions, honestly,
Yeah.
because I even have some of my own, but I'm gonna start with all the listener questions. Okay, is organic wine really that much better for you and less of a hangover?
So number one, I'm not a doctor. I can't talk about better for you. What I can say is this:
Yeah.
any of us, when given the option, we all, when you think about it logically, would rather put something in our body, any food product, where there's no additives. It's better for you in that
Yep.
case
Yep.
because you're not adding something that probably shouldn't be there. And there's
Right.
a lot of studies that have been done, whether it's Roundup, whether it's, additions of non-organic materials that are sprayed in a vineyard, um, those kinds of things, which in the farming world, I had it best said by a winemaker friend of mine. This is now 11 years ago. I'm in his vineyard in the Roussillon region in southern France. And he
Mhm.
goes, I farm organic biodynamic because I eat as a food here. Why would I want to eat as a shit food?
Ah,
It's for my life. And
yes.
he
That's
was so
a
right.
good impression.
So what I want people to think about is the concept of organic wine,
Mhm.
biodynamic wine. We're
Mhm.
separating ourselves from what matters. It's the farming that's the important thing. Organic farming, biodynamic farming,
Okay.
handling of the grapes in that way without these non-organic additions. And I also want to be very clear, in organic farming, they're allowed to use copper and sulfur and other things in the vineyards to
Mhm.
save the vineyards, because I don't know if you guys know this, for those of you who have not traveled to vineyards, but like, a vineyard is literally an ecosystem where fucking animals live.
Yeah.
Animals,
Yeah.
not humans,
Yeah.
wildlife. And stuff happens. There's rain, there's powdery mildew, there's eagles that come and eat little animals,
Yeah.
sheep come and eat the grapes. There are reasons why people make these decisions today. So let's be a little bit mindful when we're judging quickly on, the organic versus non-organic. But the
Mm.
concept of organic wine,
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
just like the gauntlet of, drop the
Yeah.
guillotine, it's organic.
Yeah.
I think we got to take a step back and think about what we're talking about in a little bit. That's my take on it.
Oh,
Organic farming matters a lot, a
I love
lot.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, so in biodynamic, can you like what is the difference? I
Like what?
feel like there is organic, natural, biodynamic. Like I hear all of these words, but it's also
Yeah.
like they all if I were to ask someone, usually they're all described very similarly, but I think they're very different. No?
Well, because they become marketing terms, and people, when
Okay.
you go to a shelf at a grocery store and you see organic, and then you see the option B next to it that's not organic, which one are people going to buy?
Of
Especially
course.
in cities.
Of
Let's be
course.
honest.
Of
But
course.
the actuality of this stuff, there are details and reasons why, and yeah, in a lot of cases, governing bodies who oversee it all. Biodynamics is another farming technique. The same guy who created the Waldorf school, Rudolf Steiner, a old Austrian dude, he created biodynamic farming, which was a way of being one with the lunar cycle to know when to do all the important parts of growing. And it's not just for vineyards; it's for any sort of things that you grow in a field, things that grow in some sort of a pasture or whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's knowing when in the moon cycle you're supposed to sow your seeds, when you're
Yeah.
supposed to trim back parts of the vineyard, or I don't want to speak on wheat and cereals and things, but like you could do it with that as well. And so the whole point is that what being one with the earth, being one with the moon, especially, we're made of water. We're super sensitive to the lunar cycle as well.
I
It's
love
this
all this
kind of
moon stuff. I love it.
it's
But go
this
on.
full
Yes.
circle understanding.
Yeah.
And then there's other things that were brought into it, like there are certain preparations they do that are a little witch doctory and a little bit voodoo, which I kind of am into.
Me
I'm from
too.
Louisiana. I was born in Louisiana. Like
I didn't know
there's
that.
some, yeah, well, I mean, like I lived there for I think 3 months. It wasn't up to me,
Okay.
but my
Still.
mom's from there, and I've got this kind of like Cajun side of the family that's all about healing and energy, and so I'm attuned to it, right? The witch doctory stuff that goes on, like they have you get a cow horn and you bury a certain amount of manure in a very specific part of the vineyard at a very specific time in the lunar cycle, and what it's known to do is release nutrients that the vineyard needs, and it knows how to, depending on the drainage and when it rains and where the runoff goes, it knows how to carry nutrients certain places. And think about this:
Okay.
when you think of a tree, we've all seen trees, especially if you live in a city, you've probably seen tree roots that are coming up and trying to find water and whatnot. They
Yeah.
ruin sidewalks and whatnot. Grapevines, when they've been alive a long time, they're digging all the way down and they go deep. Sometimes, it could be as low as 6 or 8 feet and as far down as 50, 60 feet or so. The older they are, the lower the roots go, the more likely they are to find sources of water and not need the external world to help them, which is better in times of drought, better in times of extreme heat, better when things are really messed up like they are in the world right now because of global warming. These older vines are better. And biodynamics has understood this for a very long time. Just like you're
Interesting.
trying to help the vineyard have this, you look at it as an ecosystem again. And
Yeah.
that's why,
Or
like,
holistic. It's like the land
it's
and
very holistic.
everything's working together.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm sensitive because calling a wine biodynamic and calling a wine organic is taking away the fact that it's all done in the vineyard.
Okay.
Organic farming, biodynamic farming are what matter. And the organics is all about, and for those who are certified in those two things, especially in
Yeah.
the EU, this is a 10-year process. This doesn't happen overnight. You got to prove yourself, have these practices, people come and check on you. There's a whole, like a lookbook of all the stuff you've done. They know what your neighbors are up to. If your neighbor's a conventional farmer, you may not get certification. So I love that someone asked about that and your head's in the right place, but I really do want us to zoom out a little bit
Yeah.
and think about
Yeah.
the farming is what matters
And so
always.
got it.
So,
Good.
number one, the one way to not be hungover, well, it's two ways. The first way, we're not gonna, it's probably not our advice, but don't drink alcohol. You won't be hungover if you don't drink alcohol. Step
Right.
one.
Yeah.
But when you drink alcohol, like we all do, the only way to not be hungover, no matter how much wine you drink, no matter the quality of the wine, no matter the price of it, is to have a fucking glass of water. You are dehydrated when you're
One.
hungover.
Right. Right.
That is, I'm going to stand on my soapbox. Like, people will say all the time, how come I get hungover when I drink champagne? I go, well, how much water did you have? How come I
Right.
get hungover when I have too much red wine? How much water did you drink?
Right.
We got to take personal responsibility.
That's
It's not the
simple.
wine's
That's
fault.
simple. I love
Okay.
that. Next question. Well, I think this is layered as well, but like, okay, simply, how can you really keep white or red wine without a core event in the fridge? So how long? I'm sure you get this a lot. You're smiling. So
No, it's a good
white,
question.
red, it's open.
Yeah.
I'm currently I live alone, so like for me, opening a bottle of wine is a big deal because I think if I'm not doing the core event, which I
Yep.
do most of the time, it's always like, am I going to drink? Am I going to open the nice bottle that I'm may not finish this week? If I get yeah. So go on,
I
give
understand.
the red white question.
So there's not a simple answer to this. It has to do with a couple things. Number one, how young is that wine? What are
Hmm.
the characteristics that wine has? For instance, when I say that, like a big Napa Valley Cabernet with lots of
Yeah.
fruit and tannic structure, and that was barrel aged for a few years, a wine like that can age for 20 years, 30 years. So if you were to open that today, have one glass, put the cork back in it, and stick it in the fridge, which should be, by the way, 39 degrees
Yeah.
Fahrenheit, that wine will probably live, and then the next part of it I'll get into in a minute, but I would say 48 to 72 hours with
Okay.
little to no degradation. But that also depends on the person drinking it. Some people are very sensitive to oxidation, and
Hmm.
as a wine changes and lives and breathes, that oxidation will become more obvious over time because that's the
Yeah. So
one job
taste.
oxygen has in life is to
Yeah.
oxidize, and it oxidizes wine. It becomes more nutty and brown in color, and it basically gets old right in front of you, right?
Okay.
So for me, if I open a bottle of wine, or especially like a big, broad-shouldered tannic red, I would say up to 3 days in the fridge, usually little to no degradation.
Okay.
High acid white wines, sparkling
Mhm.
wines, especially if you open a sparkling wine, you have one of those little champagne stoppers.
Yeah.
You can get a week, more than a week out of that, and the
And that
bubbles don't
Coravin, the
leave.
champagne oh, go ahead. Uh-huh.
No, Champagne Corven's phenomenal. Actually,
I
I
love
was
me
with Greg when he got to, so the founder of the company, we were filming a TV show that we had him on as a guest host, and he brought it out. He got to like show us the sparkling Corvan for the first time, and I was blown away because the Corvan, when it first started, I was not a fan of, and
Oh.
now what, 12 years later or however long later, it's a magical tool.
Yeah, well, we'll get to accessories in a second, but I
Yeah,
mean, that to me has become one of my favorites. I'm gonna just pause for a minute and go to like wine terms for dummies so that
let's do it.
people know what tannins are, what
Yeah,
oxidation means, what
sure.
obviously we know a young wine is a wine that's of a recent year and older, but just for people like who are listening that are sort of like, oh, what does the oxidation mean and how might one be
Yeah,
sensitive to that? What are tannins? What does that mean? One of my favorites was and this is just more of a like, all right, so if somebody says like, I'm getting notes of like forest floor, or I'm getting notes, like I kind of know what wines I like enough now, and I know those notes, whatever. It tastes like concrete. It's chewy, like it's like or whatever. But to someone who's just getting into wine, it's sort of like, why do I want to taste the forest floor? Why do I want to chew on concrete?
why
Um,
don't you?
well, there's the curiosity, right? Like, it's sort of like, what does that taste like? And then when you
Yeah,
start to know that, but so I think a lot of getting to know what wines you like, you start to kind of notice those things as you go along. But go back. So we're gonna do basic, like
yeah.
tannin. What are basic wine terms? They're
Me.
like, okay, let's start with tannins. What are tannins?
Okay, so tannins are how we describe the tannic acid that's present or not in a wine, and tannic acid comes from either the actual grape skins themselves, usually from red grapes. You
Yeah.
can also get them in an extraction with oak. So if a wine is barrel aged, so tannins, the best kind of comp for us, if you're not familiar, is if you were to steep a tea bag in water and maybe
Mhm.
you left it in a little too long and it becomes astringent. It's got that kind of rub on the back of your throat thing. That's tannic
Yep.
acid and probably way more than you want. It's
Right.
astringent, it's textural,
Mhm.
it can be a little bitter,
Yeah.
and so tannins are one of the determinants of aging. When tannins are really present and a little sometimes too much for people, that's a sign that wine has the bones to live a very long time because as time goes on, as the wine oxidizes and the oxidation is when especially in a wine with a cork, this very small bit of air is getting in and
Mhm.
interacting with the wine and it's what it's doing is basically speeding up the aging process. As that happens, the tannic structure, the tannic acid dissipates and becomes
Right.
more integrated with the wine and a little less jagged. It becomes a little more round and a little easier to understand.
I like this. What about okay, so oak, unoaked, just those in general, barrel aged.
Yeah,
Yeah, go on. Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
let's do
So
oak and unoaked, and we that's
yeah,
enough probably on the terms, but go ahead.
a lot of wines, especially red wines, are made where they'll do fermentation, whether it's in a stainless steel vat or they'll do it sometimes in an oak barrel, and then they'll have a period of time where they'll use as young as a brand new oak barrel they just received, or in some cases as old as a 20 to 50-year-old barrel. It's been used every year, wine in it, taken out, and continual use. That oak usage will in the first 2 or 3 years, for 1, 2, and 3, will give some oak imparting of flavors. Depending on where the oak is from, you can get things like vanilla, spice.
Mm,
You get like cedar. You can get
mhm, mhm,
dill. It really just
mhm.
depends on again the origin. If it's French oak, American oak, how the staves are, how big the staves are, how big the oak barrel is. The bigger the oak barrel, the less actual oak that hits the volume of liquid. So that's oaked.
Right.
Unoaked, in the case is think about the absence of oak. So when people do not use oak in wine, especially if it's a wine that traditionally would use oak, and then they make the decision not to, they're usually using stainless steel fermentation and stainless steel aging, which that
Mm,
conserves and preserves the freshness of a wine. So
mhm,
you might want a red with a lot of energy, a lot of red fruit, a lot of kind of a vibrancy that oak
mhm.
might kind of tamp down that. So not using oak, unoaked version. Chardonnay is another one that I'm not personally a fan of unoaked Chardonnay, but a lot of people are doing it. Sauvignon
Yeah,
Blanc is almost always
always.
unoaked, not
Mhm.
not always, but almost always. A lot of white wines tend to be when they want to preserve freshness, preserve the fruit.
Mhm.
But then it depends on the people. Like there's barrel aging for, I see it with Riesling, I see it with Chenin Blanc, I see it with obviously Chardonnay, a big one. And I'm just naming a very small amount of white wine varieties. There's
Yeah.
5,000 of them. So
But so it has that kind of lesser woody like, I mean, I know what that is now, I'm just sort of giving the
yeah,
context for people. How do you, build up your palate? How do you sort of get to know your own palate? Somebody says they only drink dessert wines right now. So what are
right.
good entry red, entry white? How do you start to know your own palate?
So here's what I
Or
recommend to
yeah.
get to know your palate better. There's a couple things that are very important here. It's very good to know what you like and to think about characteristically what you like about those wines. If you like dessert wines, that means you like something sweet, you like something round, you like usually lower acid, and that can be a gateway into other things. But really, the way to build the palate up is to keep an open mind and try everything.
Yep.
If you only like fill in the blank, I only listen to Taylor Swift. I only like I don't know. I only watch Yellow
Right.
Jackets on TV,
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
the TV show is. I know I had to Melanie with that.
Melanie.
But my point is like if you like something, you're going to like something else. And the way
Yeah.
to find that out is to think about the characteristics of said thing. So with dessert wines, that's usually a lot of them are lower alcohol, not always, but usually. So it's probably someone who is less into the flavor of alcohol. The sugar and the lower alcohol mask that. And I would recommend probably going into more fruit forward, a little bit less acidic wines, whether they're white or red. You could
Mhm.
do stuff like, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc that's not necessarily super acidic.
Mm.
You could do Chilean Sauvignon Blanc. You could do Chardonnays from warmer climates, maybe, you know, Northern California is a good place for that. The Russian River Valley, I love,
I love
depending on the
Russian
oak
River Valley.
treatment,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like don't get me wrong, like some of the wines there are super fresh and acidic. Like it's I'm not trying to call anyone out because I love the area, but like those kinds of wines will also be maybe a little bit more like a hug and a little bit less like a punch in the mouth.
that's
Um,
so funny. That was gonna be one of my well, we can maybe do a separate thing of that. Is
yeah,
like, I just start describing things that like that now. I'm like,
I
"Oh,
love it.
Pinot Noir feels like a good friend." It's just like a
Yeah,
good, solid, dependable friend. And
and you
Albarino
need
is
it.
like a fun little it's like a fun afternoon party. Like, it feels like a
Exactly.
fun anyway, but I wanna do that with you. Okay, so that was really great, dessert wines. Okay, God, I have so many Matthew, now I have so many questions of my own I wanna ask, but okay, let's do this, which is a question a lot of people have, and we'll go basic to like again, red, white, sparkling, whatever. Food pairings, basic. Like,
Mhm.
what is the best food pairing for a steak? Like, what
Uh,
best wine to bring out the
yeah.
for like a you want to marry a couple little things together. You're
Yeah,
gonna
of course.
yeah,
So when you're having a steak, think about it's big, it's meaty. There's usually, unless you're having filet mignon, there's usually some fat there. So you need something with a lot of flavor, something with some texture to cut through it. Wines that make a lot of sense with steak would be big Cabernet,
red.
delicious Malbec, maybe Rioja, grape Tempranillo.
Oh, I love
I
the
love
radio.
Syrah. The
Yeah,
I have a wine bottle on my arm. I don't know if y'all can see that, but that's a Syrah outline from Cornas in the Rhone Valley of France. So those wines tend to make a lot of sense with the steak. But you could also just flip the fucking script and say, you know what? I want to have a high acid white, something to cut through it. You could have a skin contact white. You could have a Riesling with a lot of
mm,
acidity,
yeah.
especially
I
from
did that
Austria.
recently. I did a like a kind of a dry Riesling. Is that right? It was like, yeah,
Yes.
it was so good, and I didn't think about that. I was like, oh, a white with a spice with a big steak with a yeah. Anyway, I had a little spice to it too. Oh, it was great,
I
great.
love that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
skin contact white especially, which,
Mm,
tends to look a little bit more amber, sometimes orange. They call it orange wine a lot of times, macerated wine, just depending on where you are and how hipster your language is, those different terms for it. But
yeah.
skin contact wine especially will have a fun interpretation with steak because it's got tannic structure. They age skins on top of the juice, so you get that tannic acid, the phenolics there as well. So that works well with steak.
Phenolics.
Phenolics.
Phenolics, all these words. I'm gonna give you fish, and I'm also gonna give you
Yep.
I also wanna know when it's like, I'm just, like, snacking and it's the afternoon, I don't really have a meal. I just want something easy, light, breezy, red and white. So I want
Yep.
what do I have with okay, we did steak, we'll do fish, and then we're gonna do, like, I don't have a meal pairing, but I want, easy breezy afternoon.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I could get super granular and I would ask what fish, how are you preparing it? I'm not going to do that, obviously. Chenin
Right, of
Blanc with
course,
fish,
right.
Sparkling wine with fish. Bob's your uncle.
Yay. Yay. I love
Chenin
that.
Blanc from the Loire, Chenin Blanc from South Africa. Do it.
Great. Okay. This is so good. Okay, what about no food? Like I'm chill. It's the afternoon. I either like a
Yeah.
chilled red or a real yummy light white. What do you got? Or what would you recommend? I love that I'm calling out what I would want if I wasn't eating.
So when I'm drinking on its own, no food, I tend to like crisp white, crisp rosé. So
Mhm,
rosé from like Cassis appellation within it's a sub appellation within the Provence area near to Bandol.
mhm.
Find a Cassis rosé, you'll freak out. It's not far from where Cannes, where they do the film festival. You could do Pic Poul d'Épinay, very crisp, limey,
Oh,
fresh white
pickle.
wine. Yeah,
Yeah.
from down the
Yeah.
south in the Languedoc. You could do, I'm a big fan of Southern Italian whites. So something like Falanghina or Fiano
Oh,
d'Avellino
I don't
tend to
know
be a little
that.
seaside,
Mm,
saline, volcanic, really good on their own.
volcano. Yeah.
You could also have with the fish if you wanted.
I'm in a very Albarino mood right now. I've been in lately. I like the Albarinos, and they're also like 20 bucks. I was just about to ask, like grocery store, simple wines for beginners. That was the next one. What are the most affordable, approachable wine options that are
Yeah.
perfect for beginners? Which we also kind of covered a little bit, is just sort of getting to know what you like.
I got
And then-
another answer to add to that, which is
yeah.
if you go a one little step further, obviously, if you're at Trader Joe's, you're already shopping, get a bottle that looks good and you like the label, and maybe someone there can answer. But make a relationship at your local wine store. They have
Yes.
inexpensive stuff and they
And those
want to
wines
show you that.
and they're wonderful people, and they're all like mom and pop, and they have everything from the
Yeah.
$10 bottle to the $10,000 bottle, or I don't know, you know what I mean. But they always know, and they're at least I love K&L here, but I
Mhm.
and so I can spend, and they never there you there's n- you you're it seems intimidating. Wine shops they feel intimidating if you like don't feel like you know a lot, but that's what they're all there for. They love it. Like
Yeah.
they're all wine, I always call them wine nerds. They're not nerds. We know that that's not like a, but this is like their world. So they love when somebody comes in and they're like, "Hey, I don't really know a lot, but like I've
Yeah.
got like 15 bucks to spend and this is where I'm going. What do I do?" Anyway, so did you hear that? Go to your that one of the next questions. What is the best way to learn more about wine and its different styles? I'm going to just go on what you just said as well. Just either in local wine bars too, but really local wine shops. I do feel like that is you just can talk to them. They love talking about wine. You're not interrupting anything there. There are no dumb questions most of the time. If there are, then like that's not a nice person. But for the most part, that's a great way to do it. This is one of my favorite questions, Matthew. If wine were a fashion accessory, which wine would be the little black dress and which wine would be the
Ooh.
jeans and the tennies? I
Okay.
love this question. Oh, I love this question.
This is a great question. So
Yeah.
the little black dress is absolutely for me going to be there's two answers. One, and I'll be specific. Aiguille Aurier Champagne, specifically that producer. They make a wine called Le Vin de Vergienne, which is 100% Pinot Meunier, and it's one of the biggest turn-on wines on the planet, which is what a little black dress is meant to do. Let's be real. And
Okay.
you want that bottle of wine empty, you want the black dress on the ground, straight up.
What?
Uh,
Did you all just hear that? Holy hell. We didn't just get champagne. I would have said champagne as well, but you got really specific, and also that is a little black dress in a bottle. Okay, go
yeah,
on. I mean, I feel like there are many accessories, but this just went from black dress, and I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. Say, okay, jeans and tennies, like jeans, white
yeah,
t-shirt, tennies. What's that?
yeah. So that's gonna be a little more like a Tuesday night. That's gonna be a little more like I'm drinking. I might break out like let's see. I think that is the Cote de Provence rosé, the one that like the Barbie rosé, the one that everyone's
Oh,
drinking. Like it just you're looking and feeling good. You're comfortable. It tastes great. It's a
yeah.
hot day. It cools you down. It's like
It's
it's
laid
meant to
back,
just do exactly what it's meant to do. Yeah, you want it by the pool.
but it's like
You
still
want it
cute.
on a
Yeah.
walk to you can walk into town and go to the grocery store, but it's a 10 out of 10 still.
I Love that answer as well. Oh my god, I feel like we need to do a whole episode of accessories.
Yeah.
Um, I will also one of the questions was, "Why is rosé so damn good?" Um, so
That's why rosé colored glasses. Why do you think?
Right, exactly, rosé all day. Oh my god, offer some tips for reading a wine label and understand what it tells you about the wine.
Ooh, okay,
Okay,
so
I have a wine
yep,
bottle right here. This is
yep.
an Averino. Do you wanna, like should I
Oh,
go
is that the Paco y Lola?
I love it.
Yeah,
I'm so
nice
into
wine.
it right now. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is the one I'm very into right now.
yeah,
So let's just say what we're looking at here. We're looking at the label. We wanna know the region,
yeah.
on the
So
label. Yeah,
the important details that you should take away from a wine label are who made it, where
right.
they made it, what grape or grapes potentially. Some regions by law and also just by history do not say the grapes because they assume you know it if you were to drink a wine from that place.
Mhm.
So not all of them will have the variety on there. And what's interesting about it is there's other lawful things like the alcohol content must be there. There's certain proportions that like the name of the wine versus the name of the grape and the name of the place depending on where it's from. A
Right,
lot of the marketing terms, now if you turn a label over and you look at the back and it tells you what temperature to drink it and what food to have with it and this whole romantic story, I'm not against all that, but I want everyone to know people's job in life is to sell you things. Don't you think they might write some shit to make you buy it if it sounded romantic?
right.
So sometimes you got to take these cute little stories with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Um, a lot of times, the less that's said, the better in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
because the wine will speak for itself. So, what you want to be looking for are, and I believe personally, especially in 2023 and beyond, like it's too easy to have a nice label. Like it's no longer an excuse to have a
Yeah.
shit label. I'm
Right.
sorry,
Right.
easy.
Yeah, labels
So
are absolutely.
and it's not about judging a book by its cover. It's literally, it's not that hard to make a label that looks nice. So let's make a nice label. Let's have clear information of where the wine comes from.
Right.
It's better in theory to have a wine, or better is not the word I want to use. It's more descriptive of where the place is for the grapes that have been grown by the people who made it, or in tandem with another great vineyard or grower, because not everyone owns the vineyards that they make the wine from. Not
Right.
everyone has millions and millions of dollars. But
Right.
there are a lot of people who buy wine and put their own label on it. There are people who buy grapes from other vineyards and put their own label on it. There
Right.
are people who don't make the wine and just buy out a winery's inventory and
Right.
slap their
Sell it.
marketing. So there
Yeah.
are little clues sometimes on things like that. And I'm not against all that stuff, but it's nice to know. You want the information, right?
Yeah.
And looking at a wine label sometimes we'll take in information and we'll teach ourselves or convince ourselves, oh, that's a good sign. Well, I don't think a lot of them are good or bad signs. It's more what's the information.
Okay. I love that. I'm gonna get into this fun little game I came up with. Sip, savor, skip.
Mhm.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, light-bodied reds. Ready? Beaujolais, Pinot Noir, Grenache.
Uh, Beaujolais savor, Pinot Noir sip, skip the Grenache.
Love it. Full-bodied, Cabernet, Shiraz, Syrah, Malbec.
Oh, this is the tough one. Okay. Savor Syrah,
Wait, savor Syrah?
savor Syrah. I got
Yeah, yeah,
Syrah on my
yeah.
arm. I told you that already.
Yeah.
And then the hard one, like I'm going to Argentina in like a month, so I'm
Ooh.
gonna sip Malbec and skip Cabernet. Sorry,
Oh, this
sorry.
is groundbreaking. The
I
cat is out. All right,
sorry.
aromatic whites. Oh, interesting. I have a Riesling, Gewürztraminer, and a Muscat. Muscat? Yes. So, okay, yes, go on. Sorry. What did I say? Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Muscat. Or is it
Sip
Muscat?
Gewürztraminer, sip Gewürztraminer, savor Riesling, skip Muscat.
Great.
Muscat's
Uh,
awesome.
what? No, I know, I know. Okay. Sparkling. Oh, this is easy. Champagne's Prosecco Cava. So easy.
Sip Cava, savor Champagne,
Hell yeah.
and skip Prosecco.
Hell yeah.
I'm
Hell
sorry.
why?
I mean, Prosecco's good when you top up your your what do you call it? My Aperol spritz.
Oh, or your mimosa. Yes, okay. Rich white okay, Chardonnay, Viognier, Marsanne.
This one is good for me. So Marsanne is a sip, Chardonnay is a savor, and get the fuck rid ever. Don't ever. I don't ever want to drink Viognier ever again if I don't have to.
Bye. Goodbye. Light and
I
crisp
don't have
white,
to.
Sauvignon Blanc, Albarino, Vermentino.
Sip Vermentino. Savor, what was Sauvignon Blanc? What was the other one?
Averino.
Savor Albarino and sorry, Sauvignon Blanc.
Spice Sauvignon
Bye.
Blanc. Bold spicy reds. Okay, well, I don't know. I don't I have Zinfandel, Shiraz, Petit Syrah, but I feel like this one should be like Zinfandel, Rioja, Tempranillo. What would be a better comparison of bold and spicy reds?
Yeah,
Rioja, Tempranillo.
Zinfandel, Tempranillo, and Petit Sirah are good.
Let's do that.
You already
Okay. So bold and spicy reds, Zinfandel, Tempranillo, and what did we say? Petit Syrah?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
I'm sipping Petit Sirah, I'm savoring Tempranillo, and Zinfandel can left fucking swipe, get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out. Dessert wines.
Mm,
Sauterne, port,
mhm.
ice wine.
I'm going to sip Sauterne, I'm going to savor port, and I'm gonna throw ice wine out the door. Skip it, skip
Bye-bye.
it, skip it.
Last one, Earth Reds, Nebbiolo, Sangiovese, Barbera.
I'm going to sip Sangiovese. I'm going to savor Nebbiolo, and sorry, Barbera, you go, you go,
I
you
knew
skip.
I knew that's what you were gonna say. 2 things. 1, like wine accessories, what's the other than a Coravin, what else do you recommend right now? For
If
gifts,
you,
for wines, for whatever.
for people who travel,
Yeah.
if you
Yes.
get to see this, I got a
Yes.
good friend up in Washington State who created these incredible wine bags called the Bean
Yes.
Armor.
Oh my god, I love them. They
So
look
what it
like
does, I broke a $700 bottle of Madeira in my suitcase one time, and so he
yeah,
heard about that story and sent me one. So this is a one bottle carrier
yeah.
that's made with this incredible, like insane. I forget the exact details, but the material inside is like what firefighters wear, like Teflon, I think, inside. So
Amazing.
it won't burn and it won't break. The bottle is safe inside. It's got a lock in place. So there's the one bottle for when you're going. You can put it in your suitcase. The bottle will not break. And then he also has a 3 bottle tote. So
Oh,
these
that's
are
so
not,
cute.
yeah, these are not cheap, but
Okay.
vinarmor.com. I'm a
Yeah,
big fan of what Brian Hart and his team do. So I
I
want to
love that.
recommend them. I also want to recommend, I don't have it easy to grab right now, but
That's
the
okay.
if you drink vintage wines, you must own the Durand wine opener. It's a must have. It is the only way to get an old cork out of the bottle without breaking it by far.
Wow, that's great to know. I did not I've never heard of that. So even I didn't know
The
that.
Durand.com.
TheDuran.com, and also we love our core event. Really quick, proxies.
Yeah.
Just tell listeners about it really quick because I think it's really special what you're doing with proxies.
Yeah, so the Proxies team originally from Canada, they make it outside of Toronto. I came on as the ambassador 2 years ago. What it is a non-alcoholic wine alternative. A lot of people just call it non-alcoholic wine. I try not to correct everyone, but it's different because we don't make wine and then take the alcohol away. It's a whole different intentional process built from the ground up. It starts non-alcoholically, continues that way, and ends non-alcoholic. So it's uh, a wine like beverage, again, without alcohol, that starts with wine grapes, organically grown in Italy. And then we make tea for the low end, for tannic structure, for like the body of
Oh,
it.
wow.
And then we're able to layer in flavors, earth components, spice components, fruits, some juices, concentrates. We make sometimes like tinctures, and we do fermented ingredients. And what's cool about it, because we're not literally making wine that's extracting the alcohol and then you're left over with whatever you made, because it's a food product, a beverage that we then can layer intentionally. We're able to get creative, and you can kind of reverse engineer it and try to get to a place intentionally. It's really fun.
I love that. And so you can still enjoy the sort of art and the flavors and all of that of wine if you're even if you don't drink alcohol. And I think that's really,
Exactly.
really, really special for people.
Or if
Um,
you drink, they're great for drinkers
Or
too.
even if
I
you
mean,
drink yeah, of course, it doesn't just
yeah.
have to be for that. It's just being able to sort of enjoy that without getting tipsy and without getting I think that's a really special thing you're doing.
Thank
So
you.
I'm glad, I was glad to see it. Matthew, I'm actually going to officially let you go. Thank you so much. You are just it's such a your enthusiasm for wine is what got me excited about wine and also what is going to get these listeners excited. Like it's just I love talking to you about it. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. I adore you
Um,
back, and
yeah.
I'm happy to be here. It's so great to share the your time, the me time with the
Yeah.
one and only. And I am not Maggie Lawson, but
I know how cute is that question. Are you Maggie Lawson? I was like, I can't wait to ask Matthew that.